What we do here is go back.
How's it going, everyone, and welcome to episode 25 of the Lost Media Podcast. Today we're talking about the movie Freaky Flickers, the lost and stolen movie that just had one giant hellish production process. This is a very loaded story. There's a lot of thievery involved, a lot of friendships being broken, and just a lot of hours spent on a disastrous and quite garbage-looking kids movie. You can see behind me, the animation isn't great. It improved a bit, but the entire movie just kind of sucks. It was never finished, the movie. It was designed to be a spin-off of a toy line, a very unsuccessful toy line, by the name of a guy, Simon, who came up with this. And look, I don't know if his name's even Simon. He's one of the co-founders of this toy line along with his brother. And he was the guy who kind of spearheaded this film and ran it with an iron fist. He was pure evil, this dude, from what we've deduced from this story. It started way back in the early 2000s with a guy named Kerry who had worked on previous productions like Lord of the Rings as a set designer and was pretty decent with his experience in the film industry. And he was tasked with making Freaky Flickers and coming up with the script, I believe, and animating the whole movie. And the equipment he had to animate this movie was not great. And the budget was not great either. And the software kept crashing, and it was just another shit show. I think between the years 2005 and 2007, because of the software issues and because of general problems with production, he only animated 3 minutes worth of footage for the film. A lot of people thought that he was lazy and, wasn't a great animator and just wasn't doing enough for it. But to be honest, with the amount of equipment that he was provided with and the budget he was provided with, the type of equipment rather, and how poor it was, he was doing the best he could. And a feature-length film is not easy to put together. It's worth noting that this was meant to be a series in the beginning, and then they kind of reworked it into a film instead because that would be much easier to work on and potentially much more profitable. And the guy, Simon, who came up with the toy line and was just trying to make a business out of this and try and make a successful movie out of his unsuccessful toy line, he was just, let's just say, a bit of a dick to work with. Like, he wanted to cut all sorts of corners and wanted to, make it work for him as much as possible. Again, these aren't all facts. These are all opinions and what I've kind of come up with from my research on this whole production process. To cut a long story short, in 2008, he continued working on the film and he got enough animation together by the start of 2009 to release a trailer for the movie. And that's been playing behind me, and the animation style in the trailer, it's not great. By 2009, the best animated movies looked a lot better than that, obviously. It looks like animation from the very early 2000s at best. Maybe even the 90s, maybe even the late 90s. That was the sort of animation that was going to air on TV and in movies. But it's about 10 years behind, I guess, because of all the lack of a budget, I guess, they had. They claimed they had a deal with MGM and a budget of $2 to $3 million, and also was set to premiere in 2,000 plus theaters across the United States. But I don't actually buy that. I know this was the claiming of Simon and the people involved in this, but I don't believe that. I'm saying his name is Simon and not his actual name because the actual name is still up for conjecture. That's how bizarre this whole thing is. You don't even know names of the people involved. You can correct me in the comments if his real name has been released and Simon was just an alias name used for the video by Bedhead Bernie. But he discusses this in his video about the topic, and I gotta be honest, I was very confused watching this video. It's a good video. It just is very strange how it was explained and very hard to wrap your head around. And I'm trying to, I guess, in this podcast talking about it, make sense of the whole thing. Freaky Flickers, the movie, is about a scientist who comes up with these little tiny toy figures and makes them come to life. And he's this genius guy, but he hasn't paid off the IRS and they're coming after him. And the flickers are going, oh no, our scientist that created us is going to run out of money and go broke. We got to save that. We got to save him. So they go on this amazing adventure across the 7 seas in the quest for the golden flicker. And all sorts of craziness and hilarity ensues. I watched the trailer last night. It's honestly potentially one of the worst animated movies that could have ever been released if this got released. It's no good. I love the place. I love what happens in it. It's a lot more interesting than a lot of, I guess, popular animated movies. So they had a good idea with the setting and the adventure style of it. The writing and the animation is terrible. And the trailer voiceover doesn't help either at all. It's shocking. But to continue with the hellish production process of Freaky Flickers, as I said, guys, there's a lot to cover, so I'm doing it in bits and pieces. I apologize if I'm going out of place. By 2009, that trailer's released, the first trailer with the crap animation, and let's just call it what it is. And Carey has been working so hard on this. To be fair, he doesn't have any budget. He doesn't have proper production equipment. It's all crashing. The animation, he's trying to do on these old computers is the computers are crashing. Everything's a disaster. And in 2009, he's still working on it. He's got a deadline to reach for the movie. And he's working his ass off, hours on end, doing late nights. And even though there's a deadline to reach, he's just like run out of energy. He's exhausted. So he goes to sleep, and little to his knowledge, the guy who's editing his animation into a movie, who he's known for 15 years in the industry, is essentially plotting against him. He's pissy that this guy's taking so long and that it's such a disaster. So he steals everything. He steals the entire movie. And, it's theorized that he was more on Simon's side, the guy that was spearheading the production, who came up with Freaky Flickers and who wanted, the ultimate success for this movie. And he just was probably offered, more out of the movie for himself to steal it. So that happened. And the movie kept being produced. They kept hiring new animators for this. And the animation style had a drastic improvement. It has been playing behind me. He had a huge improvement on what they were able to achieve in terms of where they were. It's still not very good, and the writing is terrible, and it kind of just looks like some crappy Saturday morning kids show in Australia that's produced in Australia. And it's not great. But the animators that are putting together the movie at this point in like 2010, 2011 sort of times, they're not really being paid what they're promised. And the guy, Simon, went through so many animators because he basically started ripping them off, and he wasn't a fair spearhead of this production. And then by 2011, I think the movie was completely and utterly canned because I don't think there was enough funds at all, and that was it. The movie just remained incomplete. If you watch that updated trailer, which was the one I just mentioned before as being terrible, like really bad, you can see that there's a lot of different parts of the movie that are important to the plot that have been animated, obviously. But the movie is still incomplete, apparently. It looks like it's terrible for Freaky Flickers. I think that's irrelevant to the story of how it became lost and how it just became a complete disaster. But if you were to watch the movie when it was released, you would be like, what is this? This is terrible. And that's really all you get from a movie. You're not watching a movie from the perspective of the people who made it. Let's just say that. You're watching it from the perspective of what you can see in front of you as a film, and you're going, this is a disaster show. This is one of the worst movies I've ever seen. And I think that was the problem with Freaky Flickers. It was not good. It was not good content. But The more interesting story, obviously, is the production process and how bad that was. Carey, after it was all stolen, he bought a little notebook to write in blog posts on the internet about his story of being a part of this production and how much he got dogged working on this movie and spending years on it. And I guess he was at a sort of desperate part of his career where he needed something to kind of work for him, and he needed to, keep working in the industry and keep earning as a, animator, a set designer. At this point, he's an animator, obviously. And so for everything he was working on the film with to be stolen and all his work to be stolen, it was pretty brutal for the guy. And allegedly, as part of the Bedhead Bernie video, he's still struggling to this day to find work and financially. And that was the beginning of this guy's financial decline, all the movie being stolen. So it's an incredibly sad story, in my opinion. Just the greed and not being able to trust people is the key elements of this. I think the guy that was working with Carey for 15 years and then stole all the equipment and all of the animation he had done for Simon, because it ended up in the hands of him. Still claimed to be lost, but because he claims he doesn't have that, but obviously he does. That's probably the worst part of this story. The guy that Carey trusted just completely betraying him and taking all his work. And it's a fickle industry. When you work on the wrong production, it is a fickle industry. It's terrible to work in the film industry, to work especially on animated kids movies. Why do I always hear these sorts of stories come out of really crap productions, but especially animated kids productions? It's always those. I mean, it's a disaster. Obviously, it's just a complete shit show. As for the film's whereabouts, it's in the hands of Simon, the guy who came up with Freaky Flickers and who was trying to, do as much as possible with putting at least as little amount of effort into this as on his behalf as he could. And that's really all there is to it. That's Freaky Flickers. He's the guy that spearheaded it, is a shit dude, is a bit of a loser. Simon, I mean, and he basically dogged everyone who he tried to rope into working on his production. That's basically what happened. I mean, the future animators that worked in late 2009, 2010, 2011 even, they were offered to like $400. I forgot about that how much they were given to animate. And he just left them on red essentially after they sent him the animation. So this guy was just a fuckwit. He just wanted stuff being done for him, and he didn't want to actually pay anyone what they deserved for making this for him. And it's a good thing that this was never completed and this was never released, because this dude deserved nothing. He was a complete jerk. He just thought he was some sort of big shot with the Freaky Flickers toy line that did fail. And he was just a wannabe entrepreneur businessman. But he had no business skills because all he was good at was ripping people off and dogging people. Damn, this has become a real shit on this guy podcast. Again, guys, this might not be 100% facts. This is just what I've deduced from my research on Freaky Flickers. As for the movie, it's a good thing it wasn't released, not only because of how much of a disaster it was with this Simon guy, but how bad the movie would have been as well. Having said that, Carey worked very hard on it, and given the lack of budget and the equipment he was using, he actually did quite a good job. And also, you got to remember, he's working on animating the film. He's trying to animate, get movie done. He's not trying to make the movie. His focus is more on that than trying to make the movie good. He's just trying to do stuff for it. Despite all the claims of him being lazy and all that, there were a lot of things that did happen to him. His father passed away while he was trying to work on this movie in 2009, and this is before it got stolen. So there's all sorts of things, that are blocking his ability to be a bit more productive and just get stuff going. And even despite that, he's working nights trying to finish this thing, and it still got stolen from him. So screw this movie. Oh no. the movie itself, what has been finished of it, is the final thing I'll cover in this Lost Media podcast, episode 25 of the Lost Media podcast. And that is what has been made and most of the movie. Is it going to be released by Simon one day? It's incomplete, as I've said. It's not finished. There's bits and pieces that are probably essential to the movie that are not animated at all. And the voice acting I didn't talk about. There is too much to cover with this topic. My God. The voice acting sessions were 1 to 2 hours for all the voice actors. That's it. And even Carey, I believe this might be false, had to add voices himself to fill in the gaps of where things weren't completed because the voice actors had very limited time to do their voices. Such a freaking shit show. Simon won't release what's been made of this because he knows that he's basically, by releasing it, it's shedding light and credit on the people who actually worked on it and put effort into it, and he put zero effort into it, so he doesn't want to shed light on people who actually worked on this. It's just a scumbag, really. Just a scumbag that was trying to just make a bunch of money and trying to be a huge success in Hollywood, trying to do as little as possible but get as much success as possible. And this is the result. You end up with an unfinished movie, you end up with a shit show, you end up being hated by everyone. And I think there was a photo of him included in the Bedhead Bernie one, and several videos of him talking that just kind of sum it all up. One photo in particular just sums up how greedy, how he how he definitely does evoke all of the 7 deadly sins. His character has all of the 7 deadly sins. Jesus Christ. That's Freaky Flickers, guys. The crest for the golden flicker. If it gets released one day, I will make a follow-up of most of the movie, and I'll talk about what I saw and just probably laugh at the shit show on a stream or something. But also credit the animators who actually worked on these random animators that were paid $400, and Carey, of course. Carey Howe, I believe his name is. I think that's his real name as well. So good on him, can I just say, for trying his best. Honestly, when he was literally being treated like garbage working on this movie, and it all got stolen from him. Good on him. Bizarre film though, freaking bizarre. One of those really C grade, D grade, E grade movies, but the production process and how hellish it was adds a different perspective to this movie. It doesn't matter how bad it is, you can appreciate how much people were trying their best for something that really should just never have been even started in the first place, and it's a huge shame. That's it. Thanks for watching, guys. The Lost Media podcast. I've got more podcasts coming soon. I'm just going to keep making them until I officially just burn the fuck out, like Carey did. Oh, I'll literally go to sleep and I'll wake up and my entire YouTube channel will be stolen. I freaking hope not. all the equipment I use here in the studio, I'll go to sleep after making 40 podcasts in a row or whatever I'm going to do. And then it'll all be stolen, and that'll be the end of the Lost Media podcast. Jesus. That's it, guys. I appreciate your viewing. Really appreciate the support. Keep subscribing, keep commenting, keep subscribing, keep commenting your suggestions and anything you want to comment about the Lost Media podcast down there. Say anything. Criticize me. Tell me what I got wrong in this video. Definitely. Correct me. Add more facts that I didn't mention about this process of this movie. That's it. The end.